Are you tired of your negative thinking and how much it's holding you back in life? Our negative thinking can make us feel totally weighed down and oppressed, or it can feel like it's attacking us all the time, and we're being attacked not just by our negative thoughts, but all the things represented by our negative thoughts. And when we feel like we're being attacked by everything, then we get very defensive. We go into our fight, flight, freeze mode. We generate stress chemicals and we feel anxiety. So in today's video, I'm going to help you understand truly how you can shift this, give you some concepts to work with, as well as some practical tools. And I think my approach on this might be slightly different from other approaches you've seen because I talk about the emotional regulation piece that's very important, and I will talk about the cognitive behavioral tools that you may have heard already, but I'll also talk a little bit about the limitation of those tools and what you can do about that. So if you're watching this video, I think you're already motivated to want to change your negative thinking. You may not know how to do it. You may not know if you can do it, but you can, and I'm going to help you with the how. But the reason to challenge your negative thinking is to disempower those thoughts, is to diffuse the power that those thoughts currently have. And if you're still questioning whether your negative thinking is the kind you should change, watch the video I have called, "What If My Negative Thinking Is True?" Okay, so you're hit with a bunch of negative thinking. So the first thing I would like to ask you to do is to check in with your mood and your level of reactivity. Let me explain. So regulating our emotions is key to working with our thoughts because we're all connected, right? How we think impacts how we feel impacts how we think and feel, and how we feel impacts how we think. So an example might be if you have a fight with someone you really love and care about, but you're really, really angry at them. Your thoughts might turn to, I never want to see this person again. If you're dating, it could be, I want to break up. But somehow the fight resolves, things calm down. You wake up the next morning and you just are totally in love again. You can't believe you thought about breaking up. And you're thinking about the situation. You might still be mad at something the person did, but it is no longer condemning the entire person. So let me know. Put a comment below if you can relate to this example, because I know it has definitely happened more often to me than I would want to admit. So when you assess your mood, you can realize that your thoughts are momentary. Your thoughts are not facts. Your thoughts might be opinions for that moment when you're in that mood, but you might think the opposite within a relatively short amount of time. And assessing your reactivity is super important because when we are reactive in a situation, we go into our fight, flight, freeze mode. And this is an old part of our brain. It's sort of the reptilian part of our brain. And all that part of the brain cares about is survival, fighting, fleeing, or freezing in order to survive. And it generates tons of stress chemicals. It narrows our thinking to where we aren't bringing in any kind of bigger perspective. So if you find that you're in a very reactive state, doing those things that can help you reset, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's taking a deep breath, calming down, talking to a friend, whatever helps you reset is probably the first thing to do. So remembering that our reactivity as well as our moods are both emotional states and physical. And I know this isn't easy, but if we can separate enough from the situation physically, simply calming our physical body, it can have a huge impact. And then we are going to work with the thoughts. And stay to the end of this video because I am going to go through some practical tools as well as talk to you about the deeper issue that underlies this that can be worked with, but that might impede your progress in implementing some of these. So the main concept to keep in mind when we start talking about challenging negative thoughts and hopefully replacing negative thoughts is the feeling of distance from your thoughts. So this was called cognitive distancing initially in cognitive behavioral therapy. It is also called cognitive diffusion in acceptance and commitment therapy. And this was also a concept utilized more than 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece and Rome by the Stoics, who were focused on really how do we live a happy life. And even earlier, this concept was integrated in Buddhist thinking, that by watching our thoughts and not totally buying into them, we could improve our happiness. So I just give you that background so you know this is sort of a well-experienced concept, and learning to be an observer of your thoughts is super important. So let's talk about 5 techniques to distance from your thoughts. The first is to observe the patterns. When you're in a negative thinking mode, what are the themes that are driving that negative thinking? How familiar are those to you? If you can jot down or somehow note the typical patterns, it will help you begin to see like, oh yeah, there I go again. There I go again with negative thinking about the future. Or there I go again thinking I'm not good enough. So these patterns were probably developed very, very early. I'm going to refer to this a little later, but we may not even be aware of them until we really begin to watch. And watching our thoughts is facilitated by that emotional regulation we talked about before. Meditation is also a powerful way to do this. Psychotherapy has elements of helping the client observe their thoughts. So the first step for you is to really think about the patterns and then begin to label your thoughts. What category of thought does this negative thought fall into? Is it about the future? Is it about worrying what people think about you? Is it rumination? Is it anxiety? You can come up with a variety of labels, but just the act of labeling the thought, there's my rumination thought. Or even better, I think it would be more like, this thought is rumination. This thought is about projecting the future. So labeling thoughts creates that distance we need. It enables us to look at them and not be totally in them. When we're totally in our thoughts, we are fused with our thoughts. And I am going to do a video on cognitive diffusion and fusion, right? But cognitive fusion is when like your thoughts become you. And I can relate to this because there were times in my life where I was catastrophizing about something in the future, and it's almost as if I was living it. I could see the entire thing unfold. My body was feeling it. I had all the stress chemicals going as if it were happening, and it wasn't happening, right? So that's cognitive fusion. So labeling, super effective tool. And then being aware of the cognitive distortions, the main 10 cognitive distortions. And we can list them here for you. And I'll also, towards the end, point to a video that I did that involves these. But if you become familiar with the cognitive distortions, and then you'll know your favorites, right? You probably will end up having 2 or 3 favorite cognitive distortions. You can use that to label them. And then you can also just say, I know this thought is distorted. Because it's falling into one of these categories, it's a distorted thought. I don't have to buy into it. Okay, so this next tool works for some people, not for everybody, but I think it's really kind of a fun one because we're all used to creating folders, no longer so much physically, but on our computers. But in any case, create folders. So if your most common cognitive distortions are catastrophizing and magical thinking, in your mind, create a folder for your catastrophizing thoughts, a folder for your magical thinking thoughts. Picture them in your file cabinet if you still have one, or on your desktop if you don't. And when you have a thought that falls into that category, visualize peeling it out, putting it in the folder. Peel it out, put it in the folder. Okay, another technique that I really love is zooming out. So you can actually picture the event that's happening to you as if it's like on your TV, and then picture that TV and that entire event getting further and further and further away from you, so it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. You can actually picture the whole situation picture yourself on the screen, or picture an actor or actress who looks like you on the screen, thinking those negative thoughts, and then visualize that TV, that screen, that computer moving further and further and further away from you. And when it's really far in the distance, take a deep breath, look around yourself, see what else is around. Breathe in the sights, smells, sounds that are actually there, the things that are actually happening right now in this moment. So that technique, zooming out, can be super helpful. Now, I mentioned that these techniques alone won't solve this problem fully. They're great things to practice, and it's great to integrate them into your other self-help techniques. And the more you can practice these, I really think the more you'll feel a transformation. However, since for so many of us, the negative thinking came from very early negative experiences, probably with a primary caregiver, but not necessarily. But these very, very early experiences really embed themselves in the older parts of our brain. They're what can make it very hard to control that reactivity that we talked about, because they're just, boom, they go right to the amygdala. They operate at sort of a subconscious level. So sometimes to really change negative thinking and, habits that aren't serving you, you have to go deeper than simply the cognitive behavioral work. And most of the work I put out online, and then definitely my online programs, bring you to that earlier stage. It brings you to that deeper work in a kind and gentle way, so you can begin to rewire really from the inside out and heal some of those negative core beliefs. So I'm coming out with a new program this November, first live program I've done in 2 years, and it's going to be about transforming your negative core beliefs. I'm just finalizing the program, probably going to call it Break Free, Overcome Negative Core Beliefs, but I've designed it to really give you a breakthrough. It's 3 weeks, quick program designed to give you a breakthrough to see really why you developed these negative core beliefs. And when you really look at this in a deep way that I'll guide you through, you also develop self-compassion, which is key for healing. And that's how you're going to begin to transform this stuff on a really deep level. So I'll show the program here, and I'll put the link to the program right here on the screen, as well as in the description to the notes here. But if you feel frustrated by cognitive behavioral therapy techniques and you feel like these just don't work, it's probably because of very early, very negative experiences. Could be big T traumas, could be little t traumas, could be an ongoing neglect situation. But with that kind of early imprinting, you probably will need more than cognitive behavioral therapy. So that's what I target in my programs, but also other types of therapy. EMDR therapy can be very helpful. Sometimes it is great to work with a person one-on-one, which wouldn't be me, but there are a lot of good people out there. But I encourage you to do this deeper work because you are worth it and you can do it. All right. If you like this video, please hit that like button before you go. Subscribe to my channel, because let me know if you want to hear about the cognitive defusion and cognitive fusion stuff. So I will create a video on that going forward. Take care.